Laity voting on church affairs alongside bishops? What could go wrong? Joining us with his latest dispatch, Church Militant's Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, Pope Francis is taking some serious heat for seemingly packing the Synod of Bishops with 70 non-bishops who will vote with them along the outcome of Rome's much hyped but ever nebulous Synod on Synodality. There's many issues being leveled here. First off, does Francis say he's breaking with Catholic tradition on this?
On the contrary, Brad, Francis is going back to scripture and tradition and affirming that laity are the part of the royal priesthood. And so yesterday we heard from the Vatican that Francis had modified Pope Paul VI Apostolic Constitution on the Synod of Bishops and was, as you said, including 70 non-bishops who will have voting rights. And these 70 non-bishops will include priests, deacons, religious, but also lay men and women. And Francis has said that he would like at least 50% of this conglomeration to consist of women and also include young people.
Okay, it kind of harkens back maybe a little bit to what they call the Periti, the experts at Vatican II. Well, let's talk about that Synod of Bishops in its original sense from Paul VI. Is this a violation of what you would say the original plan of Paul VI, who actually, like you say, established the Synod of Bishops in 1965? Is this somehow violating that establishment?
Well, first of all, the Periti, there are going to be experts here at this Synod of Bishops. They are not going to be called Periti, but they, interestingly, will not be allowed to vote. Also, those 70 are not going to be elected like the bishops who will be present. They will be elected by respective bishops' conferences. The 70 non-bishops will be selected from a group of 150. Pope Francis will personally pick them. The 140, will be, the names will be sent, picked by different bishops' conferences, etc. Now, Pope Paul VI, some would say, innovated and created this Synod of Bishops, which never existed for 2,000 years, as to provide him with advice. This Synod of Bishops was an advisory body. And Francis has modified, and he has every right to do so as the Pope. He has the authority to do that, and he has taken this one step further, and he's given clear explanations as to why he's doing this and why he has the authority to do so. Okay,
so let's get one more argument that he's, taking heat on. Some people are saying that this is making the Catholic Church, more Anglican. You know a few things about Anglicanism, Jules. What about that accusation?
Well, to be fair, we have also said this in the past, that there is a danger of the Synod on Synodality adopting Anglican models of government. However, in this case, the inclusion of the 70 non-bishops into the bishops' synod does not adopt an Anglican model, because in the General Synod of the Church of England, you have the House of Bishops not elected, you have the House of clergy elected, and then you have the House of Laity who are also elected. These are three separate houses that meet together in General Synod, and they all vote, of course. But the laity are elected, and there's a lot of campaigning and all that goes on for them to be elected, canvassing. But this is not going to happen here. Moreover, the other fundamental difference is, at the end of the day, the pontiff can do what he wants. He does not have to accept the resolutions that have been passed by the Synod of Bishops. He can modify them, he can trash them, he can do what he wants, which is not the case with the Church of England.
Okay, so based on the, shifting gears here for a moment, we got fair and balanced reporting. The fair is, okay, he's got the authority to do so, and this doesn't necessarily violate tradition. But based on the left-wing laity elevated to positions within the Vatican, such, for instance, as at the Pontifical Academy for Life, isn't it to be expected that the deck is, in a sense, being stacked to more or less rubber stamp some preconceived outcome at the Synod vote, Synod on Synodality, this upcoming Synod in the Vatican here?
Well, that's a very good and a very fair question, Brad. Historians will respond and tell you that could also be a naive question, because popes have forever stacked ecumenical councils. I mean, Vatican I, you read the history and it's very clear there that there was a lot of arm twisting going on so that the Pope could have his way with introducing the dogma of infallibility. Pope Francis, of course, has been accused of doing that, and the fear is that there will be left-wing activist kind of laity, being pushed up into the Synod of Bishops. However, a lot of the bishops already present and a lot of the experts, here we can use the word experts, who have created these documents have been entirely from one school of thought, primarily, for want of a better word, liberal left-wing.
Okay, so we're basically just mixing leftist non-bishops with leftist bishops at the Synod to be voting together. So I guess maybe the outcome won't be so much different in that sense. Jules, you've been following this the Synod on Synodality, the ghost trail basically here for coming on 2 years. What do you suppose that if there is a preconceived outcome here, what do you think that outcome might be?
Well, we don't know what that outcome might be, because there's never been a clear agenda set before us. From the various reports of different countries, the continental reports as they have been called, we do know that at least the Western countries have expressed a desire to have women deacons, women priests, same-sex blessings in one case, even loosening up on, the church's sexual morality and ethical issues like abortion. In other cases, coming from African, Islamic-dominated countries, there's been concerns raised about how does one live an authentic Christian life in a persecuted, milieu. And then, across the board, if there's one thing that has been common, it has been concerns about the abysmal quality of preaching from Catholic pulpits.
And Jules, you've been following the Synod's ghost trail for nearly 2 years. What do you suppose is the preconceived outcome?
That is very difficult to say, because there's not been a very clearly demarcated agenda. There doesn't seem to be any raison d'etre given for this synod, except, listening and inclusion and big tent and this sort of, Vatican, neoliberal Vatican speak. So what we do know is that from the various continental reports, there's been a most definite push, at least from the Western countries, for women's ordination, for same-sex marriage, for loosening up on the church's sexual ethics. And from the more conservative countries, particularly Christians living in the Islamic world, have expressed concerns about how they practice their faith authentically when they are facing severe persecution.
Yeah, and I bring that preconceived outcome up because another well-experienced man, a friend in Rome, Ed Penton, wrote a book in 2015 after the Synod on the Family, and talks about rigging, the title "Rigging the Synod." And and then we see Amoris Laetitia come out, and it's like a lot of the bishops there would say that's not our document, certainly. and it talks about communion to divorce and remarried, and accompanying people to the peripheries and everything else. So it seemed like that document was just going to get written one way or the other, and I'm wondering if this is just going to be another a round of that. But you mentioned listening church, Jules. It seems to be the big buzzword. So maybe this doesn't, all this shifting around who gets to vote and everything, maybe it doesn't break totally with tradition or perfectly match up with Anglicanism. But Jules, it sure seems to be yet a further attempt to make the church into some type of a bottom-up democracy, doesn't it?
I don't think that would be a fair assessment, because the big question to ask here is, from history, have there been times in history where laity have been included at the highest levels of the church in decision making? And the answer would be most emphatically yes. For example, the Council of Constance, beginning in 1414, an ecumenical council that ended the papal schism of Avignon and all that sort of thing, allowed laity to vote. We are talking about, in the early church, the bishops voted at ecumenical councils, yes, but they themselves were chosen by laity, and we have that very clearly in the apostolic constitutions of Hippolytus. We have a very humorous example is the Austro-Hungarian Emperor Franz Joseph I. In 1903, vetoing Cardinal Rampola's election, which if he had not done, we wouldn't have, and he was a layperson, of course, we wouldn't have the Holy Cardinal Giuseppe Sarto, who, of course, became Pope Pius X. And then the first 7 ecumenical councils were called by lay people, a layperson, the emperor, and then the Byzantine and Holy Roman emperors exercised their right throughout the Middle Ages to confirm the election of the Pope. So lay people have definitely, and councils, historians again will tell us, there have been lay people included in councils, local councils, for a very, very long time. So Francis is not particularly breaking with tradition in this case.
Okay, well, the people out there that are waiting for a traditional Latin Mass to be allowed in their parish, and the bishop has to go to Rome for that, probably would like to have more of a listening church from Rome, and maybe in these times it seems that Christ is asleep in the boat, but we do know that he'll awaken one day and calm whatever waves are crashing against the bark of Peter. But until then, we need to stay on that bark, and even if it's being tossed by the waves. Thanks for helping us get our brains around the real issues here, Jules.
Thank you, Brett.